The Indianapolis Colts are in playoff or bust mode this year, so what must be accomplished to make this a reality for the first time since 2020? Who has to step up the most for it to happen? And what questions do you, the fans, have for us to answer regarding this topic? Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, presented as always by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com. My name is Drake Wally, deputy editor for the site. Of course, Noah Gebert is also an analyst for the site, fellow co-host. Noah, this is actually a really interesting topic because everything that we've talked about, it's over and over. It's probably ad nauseum at this point, but it's so important that the Colts make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's been a season in recent memory where it's been so critical, and the future could hang in the balance if they don't, and not in a good way.
Yeah. I think it's been pretty clear this whole offseason what the expectation should be and what the result should be, and everybody knows the situation that the Colts are in. But I think it's going to be good to break down what it's going to take individually from some of these players, from some of these coaches, from some of these units. Just trying to figure out how you all piece this together to make that result actually, or make that outcome happen. I think is going to be super interesting. You mentioned how it's so important for them to make the playoffs. I think that's super clear. That should be a goal, and division crown should be the goal. I mean, there should be some big goals, but also you're trying to be realistic and take a look at the roster and realize maybe they're not even. While the goal is more clear and the expectation should be higher than it's been in recent years, I think maybe the chances of it happening are maybe not as high as you might have thought in recent years as well. So I think you're kind of fighting an uphill battle here, knowing that the expectation and the results need to be so high, and just the people that you're working with, the roster that you're working with, and just the outcomes that you've had in the past, and history that injury history. There's a whole bunch of things working against the Colts to meet those goals. But yeah, it'll be good to break down how they can make that happen.
Yeah, and I think that these being, of course, the 2025 critical objectives. This is really most of what we've seen in recent years, where it's not even been horrific seasons. Of course, you do have recently when the Colts were so bad they were able to get Richardson, but it's the fact that this team is so unbelievably disappointing. And we can discuss this real quick because they've got the talent to make it happen. That's the craziest part, and they have, even before Ward and Bynum, they've had enough talent to push for the playoffs and get there, but they just never do, and they get really close, and then some absolutely ridiculous thing happens. I mean, you have whoever you want to blame, whether it be Minshew or Goodson, in that Week 18 game against the Texans, absolutely horribly dropped pass that ends the season right there. And then last year, you lose to the Giants to kill your playoff hopes. I mean, so Indianapolis. Tell me what you think about that. Do you think that they've been a team that pretty much is at least a wild card team, but they fall apart at the most inopportune times, it seems?
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to say that. I think as a Colts fan, you like to say they're talented enough to be a wild card team, but the reality of the NFL is you are what you are, right? You are what the results are.
Good
You
point.
are what your win-loss record says. That's gospel at the end of the day, whether you're winning or whether you're losing. And more often than not, in those big moments, they're coming up with the L instead of the win. So, yeah, do you think they would have the talent? It also, I think, is heartbreaking as a Colts fan, knowing maybe in those situations where they were so close, maybe that was a better chance for them than this current year to make the wild card, make the playoffs. You're one play away against the Texans in the Gardner Minshew year, and I know Gardner Minshew didn't give you exactly what you were looking for in a quarterback, but I mean you're not any better off than you were that season at quarterback this year, where you've got Anthony Richardson coming off that injury with all that questions and the benching last season, and Daniel Jones, what his career has been in the past. So I mean, I don't know how confident you can be as a Colts fan or someone on the Colts coaching staff that you're going to be able to take that next step that you haven't in years past, because I don't know that they've nailed down what that problem was and how to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how everything pans out. How does all this, because, Chris Ballard was against the grain, I think, in a pretty big way by getting a couple of, potential game changers on your defense like Ward and
Yeah.
Bynum. But then he also addressed depth. He also was able to sit there and grab the potentially the best tight end in the entire draft. We'll see with Loveland. But if you can't get it done after this kind of work, I just, so be it. That means that Steichen probably isn't the answer. That means that Ballard definitely isn't the answer. And who knows about Richardson? So, but we're going to jump into the chat here. There's a couple of pretty good comments. So Patrick Wright coming in from the top rope. Welcome back, Noah. Nice to get back someone with hair on their head for the show. So, I mean, Patrick, thank you. I appreciate that. Noah does have some luscious locks over there, so I'm a little jealous, Noah.
Yeah, I didn't even. Yeah, I forgot Andrew's coming on there completely in the same boat as you. Did he have his hat off for the show? Was he showing it off? I can't remember if he had his hat on or not.
No, he was definitely he was covering the hardwood floor for sure. As was I. So thanks, Patrick. You're a clown. I love it. Good evening, Noah and Drake. Noah, tell everyone how vacation was.
Yeah, vacation was good. Went to a beach in North Carolina. I stayed in a little condo for a week. I'm a pretty fair-skinned, freckly guy, but so I burn easily, but I managed to avoid sunburns for the most part until I got back to Indiana and drove 2 hours with my arm out the window and got a sunburn on my left arm. So on those sunny beaches of North Carolina, avoided all the sunburn, and then the first day back in Indiana, got the worst burn I've had all week. So that's how vacation was. Just nice. Yeah, I think I mentioned that the episode before I left. It's the best part of going on vacation is getting to come back home to Indiana, right?
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, thank you so much, Teresa, for joining in there. And then, of course, we've got the one and only Culture Shock, also just a hell of a guy, Marcus here, reposted our stream. Man, what a guy. Definitely go follow the Blue Stable. Just absolutely one heck of a guy. Great Colts coverage. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and jump into this. We're going to get the one that's probably the most, just at this point, I'm already exhausted talking about this. And we're not even to training camp. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, we're 29, 30 days from training camp.
Yeah, less than a month officially.
Less than a month, and it is figure out who quarterback one is. Shocker.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's annoying. Yeah, it's talked about way too much at this point. But briefly here, and we have to address it, there's so much happening here with this position because, one, you're looking at a guy who might be a bust. And honestly, guys, I know this will be hard to hear for the Richardson fans. Everybody wants him to succeed that's even close to the Colts organization or within it or on the team. Everybody wants him to succeed, except maybe Daniel Jones. But at the end of the day, if he does bust, he is one of the biggest busts in recent memory. If he goes out there and gets under 50% completion percentage, he starts, right? Let's say that he just can't get it going. Jones gets inserted in there, like you said, if you start out, week 4 and you're 0-3 with Richardson, this is where jobs are on the line. It's no longer about Anthony Richardson's development. And then on the flip side, you got Daniel Jones here who's risking being a career backup, and whoever is able to start also has to play well. And so there's jobs on the line. There's a potential future on the line here. If Jones wins this quarterback battle, there's ambiguity because who knows if he can do it again. And then there's really just a lot of question marks surrounding the most important position. And the last thing, the Colts yet again, Noah, are on that QB carousel.
Yeah, I think you hit it perfectly right there where you're talking about finding out who quarterback one is. I mean, if you're Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, you just don't have the time to worry about Anthony Richardson's development once week 1 kicks off. I think you go through training camp trying to develop it as fast as you can, but as soon as week 1 starts, you have to put the quarterback out there that you think is honestly going to give you the best chance at winning each game as they come up. You're not going to we were talking about, I think, all off season about how if Daniel Jones is playing this way or about this level and Anthony Richardson's just a little bit lower or right on the same level, they're probably going to go with Richardson. I'm not 100% sure that's true at this point because I think wins are going to, I mean, especially early in the season when you're playing so many division games that early and these big games against AFC opponents that you're probably going to be head to head for or be head to head against in the wild card race. You're playing these guys early. You need to come out with wins. So I think that yeah, it's. I think when I type this out, right, figure out who QB1 is. I didn't want to say the mission objective or the critical objective was to make Anthony Richardson a franchise quarterback. I think that's a little too rich in optimism for my blood. I think you're just finding a guy that can be a league average quarterback at this point and somebody you can roll with. And I think I probably should have added an extra word to that header there, figure out who QB1 is. And I think you need to figure out who QB1 is early. I think you need to figure that out as soon as possible. I don't think you can go into the season. I wish I had the numbers on this, but I don't know how many teams bench a quarterback and go with their backup in week 8 and end up having a successful season making the playoffs. I think you need to identify early on in the process who's going to give you the best chance to win not only week 1 but throughout the whole season.
Yeah, and this is something else to point out. First off, I love that you brought up you need to figure this out early. The sooner you figure this out, the better. Okay, and Jones might not look if he sucks, he's not going to show it as quickly, I think, as Richardson would. And here's why. It's very simple. Daniel Jones has struggled with, honestly, explosive throws.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like not a very explosive quarterback. He's very, very check downy. He likes the short stuff, the safe stuff. There are times where the decision making is a little off,
Yeah.
but his fumbling, he's got a lot of fumbles in his career, but like probably I'd say maybe 30 of those came in his first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So he struggles sometimes also just simply operating in the pocket and dealing with pressure. But Richardson, if he's going to really struggle, it's going to show itself earlier because he
Yeah.
can't get over 50% completion. You're not going to see Jones with that issue. You're going to see potential. I mean, Jones could always throw more picks than touchdowns, but Richardson's done it. Like over 10 games of play, he's thrown more picks than touchdowns. And he has been awful at dealing with pressure. There's so many ways Richardson can fall apart, is my point. And you're hoping that he's at least over 55, really 60% completion percentage. Tell me what you think about that, because Jones is an accurate quarterback, especially compared to Richardson. It's no offense to Anthony, but he also, I know you don't want to like make excuses for a guy, but the New York Giants, ever since winning that second Super Bowl, they have been an absolutely hapless organization, and they did not help their quarterback that they took way too high. So what are your thoughts on the situations with both these guys and what it might look like if you're like, all right, we got to pull this dude?
Yeah. You mentioned I hate putting that number on it in terms of completion percentage and what that's supposed to look like, but I think you're right in saying it's going to be easy to tell pretty early if Anthony Richardson's struggling with the same things he's been struggling with. The things that he's had issues with have been consistent, and it's been consistent not just with him, but like how it affects the offense. If you're going even into 2 weeks of Anthony Richardson being the starter, if he ends up being the week 1 starter, and you're seeing him hit some explosive plays, but you're also seeing a lot of third and longs, and you're seeing a lot of situations that where he could have hit some checkdowns and gotten some extra yards to make the downs a little bit more manageable, and the offense ends up stalling out. I think that was just a theme for the offense with Anthony Richardson at quarterback last season, where that accuracy, that completion percentage, as that went down, you just saw the offense just fall out of rhythm because you're not able to pick up those yards, and then that kind of just stacks on itself when you're inconsistent and you miss a couple too early throws and you get in 3rd and 10, so you throw it 20 yards down the field. Just by nature, those passes are going to be completed less often. So by missing those short throws, he's putting himself in situations where he has to take chances at even lower percentage throws than he was making before. So yeah, I mean, it stacks on itself, and it's just easy to tell very early. I think you get in week 2 and you see that situation start to unfold. I know we all want to wait on Anthony Richardson's development, and we like seeing those explosive plays, but man, if that's not better by week 2, I don't think that's going to be better by week 8 or 9. And if you're dealing with that through 8 or 9 weeks, you're going to be putting yourself behind the 8 ball in terms of the playoff race. And so I think you have to bite the bullet at some point and make the decision to go with somebody who can get the offense going a little bit more consistently.
Yeah, and it would look if this happens with Richardson where he can't, become what the Colts drafted him to be, it'll be such a blow to the franchise. And it's not like putting pressure. I don't want to put pressure on Richardson. I don't have to. It's all sitting on his shoulders right now. Okay, which luckily, it's not critical what happened with his throwing shoulder.
Yeah.
So this, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be just sick to your stomach with how much we're going to talk about both these guys. You're going to hear Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones from ESPN, SI, us. Everybody is going to be talking about this. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, if you, God forbid, both guys can't get it done.
Yeah.
Do you think, before we kind of move on here, do you think that is a nightmare scenario for QB? Like if neither guy can get it done, you pull one to put the other in, and it's just like disaster. And it turns out, it's not the Giants that, didn't necessarily give Jones weapons. It's also that Jones just can't get it done. Do you think that's a nightmare scenario?
Yeah, it's a nightmare scenario. I think it's relatively likely. I don't think you can expect one of the two to, like, if you're going in the situation that, okay, maybe one's gonna not work out, but the other one's for sure gonna save us if the other one, if Plan A doesn't work out. I don't think that's the case. I think both of them are probably an equal level of long shot at this point to work out, and I think that's. I mean, but and then there's a lot of time to talk about what you do if that situation comes to pass, but this is critical objectives to succeed. If you don't find out who quarterback 1 is, and in this situation, it's not like who is the best quarterback on the team that gives you the best chance of winning. I think even if you find the guy who has the best, or who's moving the offense more consistently and giving you the best chance to win, that still might be enough. And I think Colts fans are probably going to have to at least contend with that reality at some point throughout the season. I don't think either of these guys are going to come out and blow everybody away with their play. I think best case scenario, what you're going to get is one of these two quarterbacks ends up being a league average guy throughout the season. And that does just enough to get you over the line to get you through the playoffs. But yeah, I do think it's entirely possible that either of these two guys at their best, one of them wins the job, and it still might not be enough to get this roster over the line to make the playoffs.
What a horrible development that would be, that your fourth overall selection didn't pan out, that everyone was, criticizing you for taking maybe before he should be in the NFL. And then the other guy, you paid $14 million to come and compete with that same guy. And neither one of them pan out. I think that is egg on the face for sure. So this next one is huge. And in fact, it doesn't matter who you have as your field general. If you don't have consistent depth at your offensive line, or your starters can't stay healthy, a lot of things can fall apart, and that's really keeping the offensive line healthy. Now, it wasn't like horrible for, I guess, just Quentin Nelson, but you're talking about last year, Ryan Kelly, pillar of the team, even though he was on the downturn, couldn't stay healthy enough to play. I think he played 10, 11 games, maybe 12. So he missed some significant time. Of course, Will Fry's just his leg explodes basically. And then you have guys like Dalton Tucker filling in, undrafted free agent, former Colt Mark Glowinski. He comes back to the team. Ryman's out. Smith is out yet again. Tell me a little bit about potentially the Colts probably could have moved the ball maybe a little bit better with some of those guys staying healthier. But tell me a little bit about the importance of your offensive line staying healthy. And it's not just starters, it's also the guys that are ready to step up.
Yeah, I did feel weird about throwing this one on there just because it feels a little bit disingenuous or unfair to make a mission critical objective something that they really have no control over. But I think it's something that's super important just because of the change that you've had going on in the offensive line and the turnover you've had there with Will Fries and Ryan Kelly moving on and Tanner Bortolini, Matt Gonsalves stepping up. Really, in terms of keeping the O-line healthy, I think I'm specifically looking at Bernard Ryman and Quentin Nelson because of the question marks that you have at the other, I guess, two spots mainly, but also Braden Smith over there at right tackle can be considered somewhat of a question mark with his recent health history. So yeah, I mean, if you've got, I mean, it's kind of a nightmare situation where you've got so much up in the air at those spots. You have to hope that they at least turn out to be average players in Bortolini and Gonsalves as starters and able to hold their own. Uh, and then yeah, that's when that situation comes up where if Bernard Ryman goes down, then you've got Matt Gonsalves, who was already a question mark starting inside at guard, where you can be exposed a little bit less. You're bumping him out to left tackle most likely, which is I think something you should definitely be worried about. Right, you're going in there, and then that also creates even more of a question mark at whoever's jumping in there at right guard, whether it's Dalton Tucker, Danny Pinter, Tanner Bortolini. Maybe he bumps over. No matter who you're gonna throw over there, that's a question mark. And I guess keeping the O line healthy is, I mean, you can't control that. I think you needed to have a plan, and I'm not sure that there is a plan if one of your top two or three guys on the offensive line goes down, because I think you're going to be forced into a situation where you've already got two starters on the offensive line you're not 100% certain about and you're hoping takes next steps in development. One of those other guys goes down, Braden Smith, Quentin Nelson, Bernard Ryman, and you're throwing in a third question mark on an offensive line, and two quarterbacks that probably need as much help on the offensive line as they can get. I think it's just a problem that's going to compound itself into more problems for the offense if you can't keep that baseline of health on the offensive line.
Yeah, and before I kind of get into last year a little bit. I mean, you're looking at tackle guys like Blake Freeland.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like rookie fourth rounder Jalen Travis and Jack Wilson. Those are your like bona fide true tackles that are backing up Smith and Ryman on their depth chart. And then you're talking about, oh, excuse me. Then there's also Marshall Fairner. But then you're talking about Matt Gonsalves having to go to the outside.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, then it's like you're looking at probably Dalton Tucker. Maybe they throw Danny Pinter in there. Who knows? Maybe he really wasn't a very good guard when they tried to do that. But I don't disagree with you here because yes, people are really excited about the size and the pass blocking ability of Jalen Travis, right? But Blake Freeland is similar in size to Jalen Travis,
Oh,
and he's also a fourth rounder like Jalen Travis. And I'm not saying that Travis can't be far better than Freeland, but Blake Freeland looked like a deer in headlights his whole rookie season.
mm-hmm.
Tell me what you think about this. I think you've mentioned something about it before, but the last thing you want to have to lean on, no offense, is a rookie fourth rounder at tackle
Yeah.
to take over the strong or the pass blocking side.
Yeah. I think rookie first round offensive tackle makes teams shake a little bit because you're not 100% sure what you're going to get. There's a huge learning curve and a huge jump in terms of the athleticism that you're facing on the outside when you go from college to the NFL and whether or not you can hold up. And tackle's just a position for most schemes in the NFL where you're left on an island pretty consistently and you're just one-on-one and have to go up against the best athletes in the world there at the edge rushing position. So yeah, and then you get down to the fourth round, and I mean these aren't your cream of the crop guys. No offense to Blake Freeland, Travis, or Jalen Travis. These are people that were projects, and the teams that selected them, the Colts knew that they were projects, and they like kind of the baseline athleticism and the size and everything that you can't teach, and wanted to go from there. I mean it's. Yeah, I mean the Colts got lucky with Bernard Ryman. His rookie season, he got forced into some playing time. He looked okay, and he ended up being a good starter. But you can't make that the expectation. That's the exception to the rule, and you can't expect to throw in a fourth rounder, fifth rounder, third rounder at offensive tackle and expect them to hold up for any significant amount of time.
Yeah, and kind of similar to that point, you do have question marks with what is Bortolini going to do at center
Yeah.
and what is Gonsalves going to do at guard. Well, there is a silver lining that might make some fans feel a little more comfortable. First off, with Bortolini, Kelly, I just confirmed it. Kelly was out for 7 games. That's a lot. You only play 10 out of 17. Missing more than like 4 or 5, even 5 is pushing it.
Yeah.
That's considered a lot. Um, 351 offensive snaps is what Bortolini played. He had 1 penalty and he had no sacks allowed. Now, he allowed some pressures, he allowed some hits, and he struggled at times. But Tanner Bortolini played enough where you could at least feel a little bit comfortable going into his second year. Incredible athlete, just an absolute freak athlete. And then Gonsalves is even more interesting. He struggled somewhat with pass blocking, which, let's be honest, as a tackle,
Mhm.
that's not necessarily good. But he played 566 snaps. All right, Ryman missed 3 games. Smith missed 5. So you're looking at 8 games
Mhm.
missed here. And now that's not like adding up to Gonsalves played in 8 games, but he played enough for 566
Yeah.
snaps, with 563 being left and right tackle. So, real quick, do you think, like, how do you think, based off of what you've seen, these two might pan out? Because big shoes to fill, especially with Ryan Kelly being gone.
Yeah, I mean, with everybody else, with the people that you're working beside, if Braden Smith has a full healthy season, Quentin Nelson, Bernard Ryman, I think you feel good about that starting five, and you've seen enough out of Gonsalves and Bortolini to kind of expect them to be able to hold up a little bit. Uh, it's just what happens when something happens, right? You mentioned Braden Smith missing 5 games, Bernard Ryman missing 3 games. Both of your offensive tackles that you're relying on neither of them played full seasons last year. So maybe this critical objective shouldn't have been keep O line healthy. I think maybe it should have been have a plan in place for literally every injury scenario that could happen on the offensive line and hope it works out. And if you don't feel comfortable enough that it's going to work out, if any of these guys goes down, then you have to go out and make a move because you can't expect the full starting lineup to be there for the entire season.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be critical to keep it, like, for as many of these guys to stay healthy as possible. But don't I mean it's the injury rate in the NFL is 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, injuries are going to happen. There's a good chance, knock on wood, but there's a good chance that the Colts are going to need some of these backups to step in.
Hmm.
Okay, so just expect that. This next one is just, I think that it might be a little too blown out of proportion. I think some fans might think this guy's going to be the second coming of Brock Bowers, but let's get Tyler Warren involved. Now, just to rehash it, I don't even have to look it up. I know it by memory. Tyler Warren won the Mackey Award for best tight end in football last year in the NCAA. Of course, he caught 104 passes for 1,233 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 on the ground. He threw a touchdown pass. Ridiculously talented tight end, but he's also a rookie. Okay, he's also probably going to start. In fact, I think it's the only thing is it's not official that he's going to, but he's going to start. What do you think? Like, before we even dive into this, getting Tyler Warren involved is huge, but what are your thoughts on how he might look, honestly, in an offense that could be centered completely around the ground game?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's not necessarily the worst thing you could have for if you're Tyler Warren coming into an offensive scheme. I think he can hold his own as a blocker. He's going to be able to play all 3 downs. I think if you were to go out and get a guy maybe like Colston Level say that you're not as confident as being an in down or an inline guy for all 3 downs, then maybe that's not the guy you want on the field for all 3 downs in a run heavy offense like the Colts are going to have. So I think the scheme that he's coming into, I think you're gonna obviously you can't lean on him as much as Penn State leaned on him to produce in their offense. So he's obviously gonna get a little bit more leeway and have a little bit more of a supporting cast on his team that he's not gonna have to be the number one target. But I think he does have room to grow into that to be the number one target on this offense. Um, I guess all that is saying if you have a quarterback that can consistently get it to a guy who's going to be in the middle of the field most of the time, uh, and short and intermediate, which the Colts haven't had in the past, at least the past 2 years. And I think Daniel Jones could be that guy. Anthony Richardson, I think, is going to have to learn to be that guy in order for this offense to take the next step. I guess this one again, like the wording of all these objectives, I think you have to word it a little bit carefully. Like I could have just said the tight ends need to have more production. I think that's just going without saying because they were the worst or the least productive skill group in the NFL last season,
Yep,
the
they
Colts tight
were.
ends. And really the only people that you're going to get, or the only person you're going to get that extra production from is going to be Tyler Warren, I think, because everybody else in that position group is the exact same as they were last year. That's really the only place you made an addition, and it's a huge addition. So I think that they have there is the capability for him to far exceed I probably what all four of the Colts tight ends last year, Will Mallory and Kylan Granson, Mo Alley Cox, Drew Ogletree. I think all of their stat lines combined, I think will fall short of what Tyler Warren gets in his rookie year. But I think you can say that and still not expect him to have a Brock Bowers type season because he doesn't need to. The Colts tight end production was just that horrendous last year, and it really hindered the offense.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Colts they tried. They tried to put together they were really hoping Jelani Woods would be a guy that might take over that role. But of course he hasn't played in 2 years. So then you have this weird type of setup where each tight end you had last year tipped the hat of what the offense was going to do. So Kylan Granson's out there, you're probably expecting a pass, maybe an option or an RPO. Drew Ogletree, Mo Alley Cox are out there. You're pretty confident if you're a defense that they're going to run the football. And then if Will Mallory's out there, they're absolutely not going to run the football. He is strictly a receiving threat that does not get run blocking, pass blocking snaps really. So this is a golden opportunity for Indianapolis to be able to finally have a consistent tight end for the first time since Jack Doyle. And that's been a while ago. So, I have to, we lost Noah for a second. I have to point out Brock Bowers' stat line because I want people to understand, like Noah mentioned, Tyler Warren's not going to have the numbers Brock Bowers did last year. They peppered the crap out of Bowers with targets. He had 153 targets. Okay. Absolutely absurd for a rookie, anything. I'm throwing out Brock Bowers' stat line so that people understand what it would take for Tyler Warren to be this guy. He doesn't, like you said, he doesn't possess the same skill set. The Colts have Downs, Pittman. If Mitchell does break out, you've got him. Or even if he becomes, consistent, then you've got Pierce, you've got, potentially DJ Giddens out of the backfield. The Raiders peppered the hell out of Brock Bowers with targets. Okay, so 112 catches on 153 targets for 1,194 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. I mean, Tyler Warren, tell me what you think about this. If he even catches 45 passes, 50 passes, and maybe I think the height is 60, I think even that's maybe
Yeah.
pushing it, you're happy, right? You're happy. I mean, this is again probably a run-based offense. There's a lot of mouths to feed, and if the quarterback position is at least accurate, somewhat accurate, you can be excited if he even catches like 40, 45 passes at the bare minimum.
Yeah, I think when we were talking about how much the rookies were going to play, we did an episode on that a couple weeks back. Talking about Tyler Warren, obviously that conversation is going to be mainly focused on Tyler Warren because we expect him to get the most playing time. But I think I threw out Sam Laporta as a comp in terms of last year, the 2024 season, not his rookie season. Sam Laporta's rookie season was also absurd and ridiculous. But last
It
season, he
was.
came back down to earth a little bit more of his 60 receptions, 726 yards, 7 touchdowns, which is a hugely productive season for a tight end. I'd expect Tyler
Yeah.
Warren to be a little bit short of that, right? We're probably talking like you threw out that 45, 50, 55, I think somewhere in that range, maybe around 50 receptions, 600 yards. Who knows what touchdowns are going to be like, right? Those are super hard to predict. And I think they're going to get really creative with how they use him in the red zone, especially with, I mean, I'm just imagining seeing if Anthony Richardson is in there at quarterback, I guess Daniel Jones could be to some extent, but I think it would be really fun to see Anthony Richardson at there at quarterback with Jonathan Taylor and Tyler Warren both in the backfield with him right there on the goal line, and kind of seeing what things Shane Steichen can draw up. I think they're going to use him in a lot of creative ways. So, yeah, in terms of those sheer raw numbers that you threw out there for Brock Bowers, definitely not expecting Tyler Warren to eclipse that. And I also don't think he needs to in order to impact the Colts offense in a way that's really going to take them to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they don't need Warren to go out there and be a superhuman. They really don't. Again, we talked about it. The Colts have enough talent on this team, offensively, defensively, to make the playoffs. Now, if we're talking about offense, now you're adding Tyler Warren to that group. And like I said, if Adonai Mitchell can even become consistent, you have a lot to deal with on a
Yeah.
defense. Okay, and they're a ground team that's going to build around that ground attack. That's a lot. That's a lot to handle, and so we'll see how many targets Bowers gets, how much he's leaned on. Again, he's going to be leaned on, but just remember, folks, he's still a rookie. All right, he's never played against the NFL level
Yeah.
competition yet, so we'll keep our eye on Tyler Warren. But so far, so good. He's on a NASCAR track to get the tight end one role. So this next one, I really like that you put this up, and that's fix missed tackles.
Mhm.
So we're talking about, you know, Nick Cross, right? This is how I want to start this. Everyone was anybody who does stat box watch, which is totally normal. You know, you look at numbers and you're kind of like, okay, this is how the guy plays. This is a bunch of tackles. He's an absolute tackling machine. He's making the plays. 9.5, 10, 11 sacks. Oh my gosh, this guy's an incredible pass rusher. Numbers can lie, and they need context. So Nick Cross had a whopping 146 tackles as a freaking safety. He had 6 for loss, a bunch of run stops. But here's the thing. A lot of that was because there was just tackles getting missed all over the place in
Yeah.
the second level and third level where he's at. He had to do a lot of cleanup duty. So tell me a little bit about this missed tackle problem because I think even especially against the Giants, it just absolutely
Yeah.
crushes a football team when you can't tackle.
Yeah, I think it goes a little bit deeper than I think fans realize. In terms of, okay, we let EJ Speed go. He had some of the most missed tackles. I don't know if he was first. Zaire Franklin. I think him and Zaire Franklin were both in the top three. I think in terms of missed tackles throughout the year. I mean, yeah, but I mean, it starts there with your defensive captain in the middle is Zaire Franklin. Uh, Obviously, I think the statistics are going to skew a little bit more towards linebackers. They're obviously going to have more attempts at tackles. They're going to have more tackles. They're going to have more missed tackles, just by pure volume. That's going to be what happens. But it definitely goes deeper than those guys because you look in the top 100 in terms of missed tackle rate, which is tackle attempts divided by the amount that they missed, right? Like throughout the NFL, if you look at the top 100 players and their rate of missed tackles, you see Dio Adangbo in there, you see Kenny Moore in there, you see Jalen Jones in there, you see Julian Blackman in there. I know Adangbo and Julian Blackman have moved on, but obviously that was a systemic issue in those missed tackles or something within the organization, within the team. That was a problem, whether it's practice habits or just emphasis on techniques or whatever it is, coaching scheme, however you want to call it, effort. I mean, there's a ton of things that can go into that, and you just need to identify what that problem was last year, because it's not like, oh, EJ Speed missed a lot of tackles, we got rid of EJ Speed, missed tackles will be better. That's not the case, because I mean, EJ Speed had a ton, but those four that I named, and the two of the three of the defensive backs and someone on the defensive line, all had a higher missed tackle percentage than both of the linebackers. So yeah, I think it's rightly so. You should call out the linebackers who are missing a ton of tackles because that is their primary job, is to fill those gaps in the run lanes and make those tackles. So yeah, call them out. And for Zaire Franklin, it was an issue, but I think for everybody on the defense, it was a little bit of an issue at least.
Yeah, so just to put some numbers together for 3 of the guys that I've covered the most, Julian Blackman was dealing with a pretty significant shoulder injury, right? Like, I mean, he was dealing with he was playing hurt,
Yeah,
but you're still playing, you're still starting, you're still out there getting snaps. He still played Plenty of snaps. Let me see here. Yeah, so he actually played 1,084 snaps, 457 run defense, fourth most in the league for safeties, and then 613 coverage. But man, you are talking about an absolutely absurd missed tackle rate. 15 missed tackles, 161st out of 171 eligible safeties.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to Zaire Franklin, Pro Bowler. Okay, he had a damn good season. He really did. But here's the thing, he was 187th out of 189 eligible linebackers in missed
Mm-hmm.
tackles with 22. And then you go to the Peace Day Resistance, the guy who the Colts, I think, were fine just saying, we're good. And that's EJ Speed. And EJ Speed led every linebacker in missed tackles. He was 189th out of 189 eligible linebackers with 26. So, yes, there's other positions that need to tackle better. But when I look at these two specifically, all right, your defensive line clearly was letting things through,
Mm-hmm.
but your two starting linebackers were in the two out of three bottom places in missed tackles. So my question to you is, what do you think a guy who's undersized like Jalen Carlies, do you think that he might be a guy that's going to miss tackles? Do you think he might get overwhelmed by being a starter? I'm personally a huge Jalen Carlies fan. But what do you make of like the Zaire Franklin Jalen Carlies duo now that EJ Speed's in Houston?
Yeah, I mean, obviously not his strength in terms of run defense, but that doesn't necessarily. You can be below average in run defense, but still be an above average tackler. I don't think those things are mutually like those aren't mutually exclusive. You can be one or the other. Kenny Moore, I think, was in terms of being undersized. Kenny Moore has been that his entire career, and I know last season was anomaly in his career in terms of the missed tackle percentage that he was having, but has been throughout his career a really consistent tackler. Even though the guys that he's tackling are usually a lot larger than him. Jalen Carlies isn't going to have that issue. I know he's undersized a little bit in terms of being inside as an inside linebacker, but I think he's has the build and the physical makeup enough to be a solid tackler. If that's something that he's working on. I mean, it's going to be different, the talent level that he's facing from college to the NFL. It's really going to be really hard to project whether he's going to be a consistent tackler or not at this level. But I think even though he might be slow to fill some of his run fits because he's more used to playing in coverage, he's only played linebacker for 2 years now at this point. I think you can live with that a little bit as long as when he does get there, even if it's a little bit late, he is making the tackles and he is wrapping them up. And I think Zaire Franklin, I mean, he's been a tackle machine throughout his career. The missed tackle numbers were a little bit higher last year. I don't know what it was. It was weird watching this team last year. Yeah, I mean, the defense, I think, under Gus Bradley has always been a little bit frustrating. The bend but don't break thing, I think missed tackles happened quite a lot throughout the years of Gus Bradley's tenure on the defense. But I think last year it's shown more than it ever has before. So I think hopefully with a new defensive staff, for most position groups and the defensive coordinator himself, I think that just has to be focus number one when you're going into this training camp. And I know it's not going to be a super physical training camp just because as the years go on, training camps get a little bit less physical, a little bit less full contact days, a little bit less in full pad days. But I think you can still emphasize the techniques and the importance of that and make that your primary focus because it really cost the Colts dearly, especially like you mentioned in that Giants game last year.
Yeah, and you're not going to win. You're not going to be a winning. You're not going to establish, winning ways during a season, missing tackles at that rate. And lastly, here, remember what Noah said. It's not just the linebackers. It wasn't just Julian Blackman, who again was playing with an injury. It was guys like Kenny Moore. Any given game day, he's the best slot corner in football, but he had problems with missed tackles. Guys on the defensive line, if you let runners through, you're already giving up 2-3 yards, and then after that, if you're missing tackles, you're giving up like 5 or 6, making everything easier. So it will be a massive point of emphasis for Louis Anarumo. I can't imagine this squad struggling with missed tackles with an absolute bull like Louis Anarumo, who's no BS.
Yeah.
He's going to push those guys. He's going to push those guys to work on their fundamentals because, look, let's be honest. When you're on defense, your primary goal is to tackle. So if you can't do that, you're going to be exposed. So this next one's really good. I like this one. You got to get an instant impact from the new defensive backs. Of course, to anyone who's out of the know, the Colts went against what Chris Ballard likes to typically do, and that's go big in free agency. He went all in. He went and got Charvarius Ward from the 49ers. That's who he played with. That's where he had his glory days with. And then Cam Bynum from the Vikings. What did you make of these when they happened? I think a lot of fans, when you heard that they were pursuing Charvarius Ward, a lot of fans were like,
Yeah.
he's never coming here. And then it kind of blew me away when they didn't just get Ward, but they also got Bynum.
Yeah, I think that was the cherry on top there, as you get that second name there at the position or in that position group that needed a lot of help. I mean, it was very clear that Lou Anarumo came in, evaluated the defensive backs that were currently on the roster. Maybe Chris Ballard already was ahead of him in that, thinking that they needed to get some more help in there, but I know Lou Anarumo had to have a say in the defensive backs that they went out and pursued. And you mentioned, yeah, the going out there, you usually don't hear the Colts link to those big names in free agency. And when you do, it's very briefly they're linked to them, and then they go somewhere else because somebody made a bigger offer. Danielle Hunter, names like that you've heard in the past that they've been involved with. But a lot of those top end names, you just straight up, the Colts aren't in the conversation unless the agent's just leaking the Colts as a team because they've had a lot of cap space in the past and they're trying to get other teams to bid more. But yeah, in terms of serious pursuit of these free agents, hasn't happened a ton in the past. So yeah, trying not to get your hopes up when you hear some of these names that are coming in for visits. But then Charvarius Ward signs, Cam Bynum signs. They go out again. They address a corner. I think maybe we thought some other positions could have been addressed there in the draft in the third round when they selected Justin Wally. But man, they made it a point of emphasis this offseason to get some new blood in the defensive back room.
And that's good. That's a really good thing because I think it's not all because the reason they got Ward isn't all because of this man.
Mm-hmm.
Juju Brents, all right, was selected in the second round to be a long-term solution at cornerback for the Colts. He has the size, he has the athleticism, he's got the ball skills, but he's played 11 games out of
Mm-hmm.
34, which is less than 33%. I mean, that's really pushing it as far as like you got to look at this guy and say, can you even stay healthy? That really prompted the Colts to like kind of look at their depth chart and say, well, another guy is a waiver pickup.
Yeah.
And Sam Womack, that's one of our prominent guys. And he stepped up, but like that's one of your starters is a waiver wire pickup. So do you think that like I mean Juju Brents now he's farther back on the depth chart than ever. But like I don't know if he can't stay healthy or if he isn't up to speed on things. I don't know. I just can't see him, as brutal as it sounds, I can't see him being with the Colts,
Yeah.
down the road. So,
Yeah, I think it gets a little every day. I think it gets a little bit harder to imagine what his role might be and where he might slot in. Because I mean, it's not Madden where you're keeping the highest overall players at corner 1 through 5, right? When you're in franchise mode, there it's you're taking your starters, and you need to fill out that room with people who can be impactful on special teams. Valentine they picked up is going to be a special teamer. Womack's been a special teamer in the past. They've got guys fighting for a similar slot on that depth chart in terms of talent on the defensive side of the ball with Juju Brents that can give you more in that third phase of the game there in special teams. So, I mean, yeah, if you really have to come out and prove that, especially to a defensive coaching staff that didn't invest in you in the first place and really has no ties to you. And I think Jalen Jones is in that same situation, but Jalen Jones has been on the field recently and performed as a starter. Like he has that luxury where he has some past performances that can carry him a little bit and can carry some weight in terms of things that he's done in the NFL, where Juju Brents doesn't have that luxury and doesn't have that to fall back on. You can only fall back on the talent that you showed in college and the potential you might have. You can only fall back on that so often or for so long in the NFL. And then it becomes, yeah, what have you done for me lately? And to be honest with Juju Brents, it's been pretty much nothing.
yeah, I'm confident in Charvarius Ward at cornerback. I'm confident in Cam Bynum. I think that Bynum has struggled at times in coverage. But
Mm-hmm.
I also think that with this scheme, I mean, Lou Anarumo really emphasizes defensive backs in his scheme. You're going to see a lot of them. But Charvarius Ward, real brief. Of course, he had a really rough year last year, not just on the field, but off the field. Won't get into that. he was dealing with a lot. Let's just say that, and it's hard to look at his down year and say, well, you should have played better.
Yeah.
So before that, though, you had Charvarius Ward with no outside issues going on, and he was an All Pro. He was a second team All Pro. He was a Pro Bowler. He led the NFL in pass deflections. He had 5 picks. One he took back for a touchdown. Absolute menace on defense. So if you can get close to or that level, or better, even higher from Charvarius Ward, you've got yourself one of the best cornerbacks in the entire NFL
Yeah.
who's going to follow that number one receiver every game. And yeah, that includes a burner like Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, I think Charvarius Ward, he's in the right scheme. He's got a fresh start. He's coming off a down season where he's ready to really prove a lot of doubters wrong. And he's got talent around him on defense.
Yeah. Yeah. I do think it's a little bit risky to assume that he was an All-Pro 2 years ago when he didn't have all this off-field stuff going around. So when he's back to his normal self, he'll be an All-Pro again. I think it's really hard to repeat poor performances like that. That was such an outstanding year that he had in San Francisco 2 years ago. It's hard to repeat that, but I don't think he needs to repeat exactly that to make that huge impact on the Colts defense. Like we've mentioned before in past podcasts, when we're talking about Charvarius Ward and the importance of him coming in, it's not really just how well he plays. I think it's what it allows, or the room it allows the other DBs in the room to have, like where Jalen Jones isn't shadowing the number one receiver, isn't on the number one receiver on the offense every week and every snap, and you're not relying on a guy like Sam Womack to go out there and be a starter at outside corner, and you can have him more in that rotational fill-in spot starter special teams kind of role that he's been good in. In San Francisco, no less, with Charvarius Ward as his teammate. So yeah, I like not just what Charvarius Ward means for like having a top end cornerback one and what the possibilities that might open up, but also what it means for guys like Justin Wally, Jalen Jones, Juju Brents, if he ends up having a role on the team. All those guys I think are going to benefit from having him there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of excitement around what Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum are going to do. Don't put too much expectations on these guys because they are in a brand new scheme.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll see. And Ward was in San Francisco for a long time, and Cam Bynum was in Minnesota for three seasons. So we'll just, temper the expectations. But this last one is really, really underrated. And I love that you put this on here because it led to, and excuse me, to go back, Cam Bynum has played 4 years and all of them with the Vikings. But back to this. This was such a big hot button topic, and then it led to one of the most shocking cuts of the offseason.
Yeah.
And it's you got to have a consistent kicking game. And holy cow, was it crazy when they cut Matt Gay? So, what were your thoughts on that move? The Colts clearly have confidence in Spencer Schrader. I still think that the kicking game is a question mark. Spencer Schrader had just a couple kicks with the Colts last year.
Yeah, I think Spencer Schrader is 4 for 4 in his NFL career, and the other guy you have on the roster is an undrafted free agent who has no kicks in the NFL. So, I mean,
Maximilian Tulio.
Yeah, that's the entire sample size that you've got for your kicker room right now, which is a little bit scary. You mentioned that Matt Gay move. I was surprised, frankly, not just because that's the move that the Colts generally haven't made in the past. They usually don't move on from players like that when their contracts are still going on. Even though it probably did make sense, I feel like there's a lot of teams in the NFL that would be happy having the performance that you got out of Matt Gay last season. He was, I guess, just in terms of pure field goal percentage, was right around league average, which I get. Yeah, the Colts were paying him quite a bit more than to be a league average kicker. But anything under, he was money from extra points, and anything under 50, it was just beyond 50 is where things got a little bit shaky. And I thought that was pretty valuable to have. I know you would ideally want to have more consistency even from beyond 50, but I didn't necessarily think that Matt Gay couldn't come back to a level where he was hitting more at a 50% rate than the 35 or whatever he was hitting from beyond 50 last year. I think that you could have seen that percentage go up, keeping him on the payroll for another year. And I think when you're just looking at kickers throughout the league, and teams throughout the league. I think Jake Elliott of the Eagles, Harrison Butker of the Chiefs were right around that same level of where Matt Gay was. And I think they kind of have this luxury where they have offenses that can put up a ton of points, and the Colts just simply don't have that luxury. The Colts are going to win a lot of close games if they're winning games this year. I don't think there's going to be a lot of situations where they're blowing people out of the water. So I think that's when having a more consistent kicker really it just carries a little bit more weight for the team. Where maybe you've got a guy in Butker and Jake Elliott that's struggling a little bit, but if your offense is outscoring the opposing offense by 10, 13, 20 in some cases like they were, then you're not really worried about it. But if you're the Colts and you're trying to win a whole bunch of one possession games, then I'm not sure that 4-for-4 Spencer Schrader or undrafted free agent Maddox Trujillo are the guys that you're wanting to rely on. So it does scare me a little bit, despite that $3.5 million or whatever that price tag was there for Matt Gay that they ended up saving by moving on. I think just having a little bit more consistency in the kicking game would have benefited them.
Yes, and I wasn't the a Matt Gay fanboy, right? But like, listen to these numbers. I personally would be. I don't know if he's worth the. I think it was like a 4 year. Yeah, I think it was 4 years, $22 million. That's pretty freaking. That's a lot of gravy to give to a
Yeah.
kicker. But I mean, 20 to 29 yards, 9 for 9, perfect. 30 to 39 yards, 12 for 12, second most in his career, perfect. Then you get 40 to 49, 7 for 7,
Mm-hmm.
perfect. He was 28 for 28. Okay, in his career, he's never missed from 20 to 29 yards. He's 41 for 41. He's 54 for 58 from 30 to 39. He's 42 for 49. Missed a lot of these. More in his early career, but he's 42 for 49 from 40 to 49 yards out. Of course, his Achilles heel has been those deep kicks.
Yep.
28 for 45 last year. All 6 of his misses came from 50 plus yards. But he was money,
Yeah.
absolute money. I I think the Colts are incredibly confident in Spencer Schrader. I think that's why they let Gay go more than they just didn't like Matt Gay.
Yeah.
I think that they've got the utmost confidence in this kid. But tell me what you think about this. Look, Matt Gay's not like a superstar, right? But he is a former All-Pro kicker, former champion. I mean, those are some decently big shoes to fill.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if it were me making the call there, I probably would have kept Matt Gay, and
I would have.
it just accepted the fact that yeah, we're paying him more than he's probably worth, and we're gonna look a little bit goofy if he misses some more from beyond 50, and even if he misses the occasional 40-yarder or whatever in the season, if that ends up happening, I think you just kind of swallow your pride there, and you accept the fact that hey, when the game's on the line, I don't care that I'm paying 3.5 million. If we need a 47-yard game-winning field goal, I'd much rather have Matt Gay out there on the field than I would Spencer Schrader at this point, just because we don't know for sure with Spencer Schrader, and Spencer Schrader might come out and be lights out this year and be one of the top kickers in the league. And I feel like you have to have that level of confidence in him if you're the Colts because of what you moved on from in terms of that consistency that Matt Gay was giving you in the short and intermediate kicking game.
Yeah, and the money you gave him. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the largest kicker contract in
Mm-hmm.
history. So this last thing, we got some Colts. Excuse me, we got some Colts news and rumors. Very simple. Guess what, everybody? It's your favorite quarterback to talk about, Anthony Richardson. It never stops with him and Jones. So, of course, he said that he is going to be ready for training camp after missing mini camp with this time it was soreness in his throwing shoulder that he had reconstructive and strengthening AC joint surgery on. He said, quote, "I'm all good. Not really even a bump in the road. I feel like I tripped, I fell, just got back up and hit the ground running again." So Richardson is still, I would say that look, tell me what you think about this, but right now I think Daniel Jones is the QB1.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are not going to be excited to hear that, right? And
Nope, it's true.
I think you go into training camp, you're not going to let Anthony Richardson loose 100% like you would have if he didn't have this hiccup. And I think Shane Steichen's probably pretty content with having Daniel Jones be that starter when you go into training camp, and letting that kind of play out, and having Anthony Richardson earn that back. One thing I did like about that quote that you just read out from Anthony Richardson, I like how vague he was about it. Where I feel like in his first 2 years, if that same thing would have happened, maybe he would have admitted that, yeah, I was in some real pain and I couldn't lift things up. It might be chronic, whatever he said about his back injury, all these things. I don't really I care what the situation is. It might be a little bit more serious than he's letting on, when he might not be 100% full strength by the time training camp goes on. But I like that he didn't just outright say that he's struggling and he's hurting, just to add fuel to the fire for his injury history and everything that he's had going on for him. So I do like the vagueness. It seems a little bit more grown up and a little bit more professional in terms of how to handle the media from the young quarterback, which is good to see, just based off of, I mean, not only him but what Shane Steichen, how he handled the media last year. So it's a little bit more refreshing to get. I know we as people covering the team want to get as much information as we can, and we'll take that and we'll run with it. But I'm okay with being a little bit in the dark here, and seeing a little bit of that growth in terms of the media aspect.
Yeah, I look, Richardson is he has to stay healthy. To make it very brief, Jones has a multitude of legitimate advantages. Richardson has the athleticism, the sky high potential ceiling, the fit where he could. It's always these hypothetical words. He could take this offense
Yeah.
to new levels. But Daniel Jones has the accuracy. He has the experience. He can read defenses better. He's been to the playoffs, albeit once, but he won a game. All right, like this guy is fighting for his football legacy here,
Mhm.
and he chose the Colts because he felt like it was the easiest path to starting again. So there's a lot of reasons, and you're gonna. I'm glad you said this. Colts fans won't want to hear this, especially the people who are all about Anthony Richardson. There was at one point a slim chance. Then it became a kind of decent chance. I now will confidently say there is a slightly above decent chance, and it's growing, that Daniel Jones might be your starter for the Indianapolis Colts. Okay, we'll have to see, but Richardson has to get back up to speed. He's already behind. He's got to stay healthy, and he has to show that he can improve drastically. When you are 59% in your rookie year throwing the ball, you drop to 47% in your sophomore season. That's concerning.
Yeah.
That's insanely concerning. But briefly, do you have faith? Do you have faith in Anthony Richardson, or do you think that you can be blunt? You can be blunt here. Do you think what you've seen, it looks like he might not be it?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like to be too hard on the kid. I don't want to be blunt
Put
about.
you on the
He's a
spot.
he's 23 years old.
Yeah.
To say I don't have faith in him, who am I? But honestly, I think, yeah, it's looking less and less likely that he's going to be the quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts for the long term. Maybe he gets some starts. I'm sure he'll get some playing time this season. But yeah, in terms of his long term future with the Colts, maybe he has a long term future somewhere else, but I just don't really see it here at this point.
Well, we will have to see. But everyone, that is our show. Thank you so much for joining in. We had plenty of viewers. The true dog days of the off season. So anytime we can get this kind of viewership and support, we are more than grateful. But don't forget to like the Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow Indianapolis Colts on SI. That's our channel. Plenty of amazing written work from myself and our wonderful colleagues and analysts. And of course, on X, we are at Colts on_SI. Subscribe to Horseshoe Huddle on YouTube. Click the bell to turn on all of your notifications. Don't want you to miss anything. And want to listen to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast? Excellent. We are everywhere. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you listen. And yes, you know what? Before we go, hell of a season. Absolutely hell of a season to the Indiana Pacers. Tragic ending to Tyrese Halliburton's incredible playoff run. One of the greatest I've ever seen. But until then, we will see. You guys have an amazing week. We will be back on Thursday to bring you even more Colts coverage during this downtime in the offseason ahead of training camp. And we all hope that you have a wonderful evening. Take care.